This is a Paradigm Shift podcast brought to you by the Conscious Investment Group Leadership Academy, founded and funded by Dr. Curtis Haynes Jr., in collaboration with Build a Buffalo and The Charlie Fisher Show, led by Charley H. Fisher III. This show is executive produced by Mindframe Media and co-produced, hosted, and recorded in the beautiful Pod Hub podcast studio, owned and operated by Mr. Jamil Cruz. Housed in the Exchange Center at Beverly Gray, all Black owned. In this special episode, we bring together two of Buffalo's most influential thought leaders. Dr. Curtis Haynes Jr., PhD in political economy, chair of the Center for Economics and Education, Buffalo State University professor, real estate investor, former Ellicott District Council member, founder of the Conscious Investment Group Buffalo, the Academy, the Mondragon Village Association, architect of the Jefferson Avenue Strategic Action Plan, and Bitcoin holder. And the Honorable Charley H. Fisher III, ordained elder, 33rd degree Freemason, social activist, community organizer, former council member at large and the last one to ever exist in Buffalo, former campaign manager for former Buffalo mayor of 20 years, Byron Brown, and leader at Build a Buffalo. I am TJ, and I will be your moderator. This conversation will explore the intersection of cooperative economics, local politics, and strategic empowerment for Black Buffalo. From the aftermath of the Tops tragedy to the path towards transformation on Jefferson Avenue, this episode will dig deep into the real work of rebuilding Black Buffalo, not just structurally, but economically, spiritually, and socially. The only time I will speak from here on out is to ask questions and ask for clarification. Let's begin.
Okay.
How are you both feeling today? What's on your hearts and your minds right now?
I'm feeling good. God is blessing.
Yeah. It's nice to be sitting down with my brother over here, Mr. Fisher. We've known each other for quite a while.
Awesome. So, to Mr. Charley, the first question. Why did you approach Dr. Haynes and suggest a strategic action plan, and how does it align with the work you've been doing through Build?
I have known him, as he said, for some time. I've always admired him. He's a great man. He's an economist, and one of the few that we have. He is somebody who has always answered my call when I've asked him to come to a meeting, to a group, to share his brilliance and expertise. And of course, when we start talking about Jefferson Avenue, I remember the needs assessment that he did 20 years ago plus. And it was great work then, and of course, led to the formation of the Our Market Committee, which is the precursor to TOPS. There'd be no TOPS market here if it wasn't for the needs assessment that Dr. Haynes and others did. So he was my first and only thought when we started talking about the revitalization of a commercial strip like Jefferson Avenue. That's who I wanted, someone that could talk about community economics, and we'll get into that, but he's foremost that I know and have been the pleasure to meet.
Beautiful. Dr. Haynes, since you unveiled the strategic action plan, what feedback have you received? What do you believe are the next steps?
Well, the feedback directly was from the people who heard the action plan at the community town hall that we had. But I would say at this point, and probably what is going to be needed is that we need to get that plan out, right? We need to get it out to people. Probably most of the feedback has been my own editing it and making it like this got to be the one, right? This has got to be the one.
Okay. I'd pose this question to both of you then. What are 1 to 2 concrete action items from the plan that you think our listeners should be watching closely in the next 90 days?
Clearly, the fact that there'll be a needs assessment, a asset mapping of the community. Scripturally, I'm reminded the Bible it said that know those who labor among you, to know what we have as resources. That's one of the first things that's going to happen. There are many different aspects of this that the community, but that fact that there's going to be a real scientific data grasping, asset mapping, that's critically important. And there'll be offerings, plans for, brilliant plans such as the Community Benefit Agreement and several other initiatives that will forever change Jefferson Avenue.
Any commentary, Doc?
Well, I would, this is like this idea of a needs and asset mapping, as Charley was saying, is that we did that initially with other people. Like when I first got involved with our market, and David Collins was a council member at the time, and then quickly Byron became the council member when we actually started getting forward there. But what's interesting is that in traditional mapping, right, it's usually a needs assessments, and I think that where we're headed now is that not only do we need needs assessment mapping, but we need asset mapping also. And so that's something that myself, like with one of the original groups I worked with, the Resurgent City Center, we did needs and asset mapping, but also when I was council member, Ellicott District Council member, we also did needs and asset mapping. And so it's just appropriate that we do it at this stage because, we want to find out what's out there on the ground. So probably the first thing that our community needs to know about is, well, we're going to need people to do it. Right? We're going to need people to walk the streets.
Makes sense.
I know I have a team, people associated with the academy, but probably we're going to need as I mentioned in the strategic action plan, we're going to need a second tier of support when we put this army on the streets, right? They're going to need support with resources, material. And I probably, and Charley probably would agree with this, that one of I've been real fortunate and blessed to work with young folks, and they're very enthusiastic at the beginning, right? But at the end, it's usually the old folks who stay, right? Mm-hmm. Right, and in part is because there's no money, right? And so I would say that's what's going to be critical. Our constituency out there, the philanthropists, the people who really want to see a change on Jefferson Avenue, we're going to be bringing something to the table, and we request and that other people bring stuff to the table so that we could do this needs and assessment mapping, and after it's mapped, let's build.
Mr. Fisher, where does the Build of Buffalo network plug into this plan, and how are you translating vision into boots on the ground organizing from your perspective?
That's a key focus. We build, I think, plugs into this. We're already advocating, for instance, 1140, 1166 Jefferson Avenue, 2 newer apartment complexes. I've had the chance to interface with them. Concerns that they have, and Bill always has addressed the needs, the concerns, the complaints. So when we start talking about the community, we were already on Jefferson. St. John's Lodge number 16 purchased a building at 17 Kingsley in 1978. We've talked to the leadership there. And just up and down Jefferson, the fact that Dr. Daniels is creating a medical facility in 1490. We've worked with the Johnny Wiley. So build organization, build unity, independence, liberty, and dignity. Will attempt to continue to organize, on a large scale, organize. But I see no inconsistencies. I see no area of what my brother here is presenting that we aren't that we are already aligned with everything there. And so it's part of our previous platforms and conventions. All this is of the same ilk, the same thought pattern, and we're on one accord with this.
Alignment.
Yeah, I would say, so like, one of the things is, like, I'm an academic, so I'm, in this ivory tower. And part of my work, actually most of my work here in Buffalo has been to get out of that ivory tower, right? But Charley's been boots on the ground, right? And so I would say that my scholarship, right, because what we do on Jefferson, this community wealth zone concept, that could be a pilot project for any urban community, any black urban community, or not even black, right? But it could be just good economics. So I know what I bring to the table, right? I bring the scholarship to the table. I got a decent team, but definitely the marriage is going to be Charley's bringing the boots on the ground, right? And I think bringing those together we're going to create something really phenomenal.
Dr. Haynes, you often talk about moving from scarcity to abundance.
Yes, sir.
What does that look like for black households, or specifically black Buffalo households today?
Well, I mean, that's a great question, because there's, and I probably would say that, I don't know if the zip code, the Jefferson Avenue zip code, is one of the, I know our zip code is one of the poorest zip codes in the city, and we have a significant amount of poverty in our communities, but we're at a stage that the world is shifting significantly and very quickly, and it's time for us to strike when the iron is hot, and what that means is that yes, we have a choice of hating the bad or loving the good, as most of you have heard me say, and hating the bad is it has gotten us to where we're at, but we're in a very unique time period. We're in a epoch level shift in society, and the things that are going to be needed what abundance is about is probably the very first thing is a shift in mindset. And it's the idea would be that that we as human beings, we're the output of what we consume, and the idea is that if garbage in, garbage out, right? Mm-hmm. But high quality product, a high quality service in, we get high quality out, right? And the shift from a scarcity mindset, which is the economics in general is scarcity. I mean, that's the science of economics, right? It's the science of scarcity. But when we look at that science of scarcity, it keeps the black community in the United States, it keeps this third world community in Africa, right, Latin America, it keeps us in a box, and it's time for us to come out of the box, right? We can't afford to be talking about scarcity. I mean, yes, in the material world we have it, but the solution is a shift in the mindset, right? At least that's the first step, right? You could hate the bad, but you could love the good. And if you build on loving the good, right, we get a different outcome.
Question to both of you, whoever wants to answer, it's up to you. What is the biggest economic blind spot that you feel is in Buffalo's black community, and what's one bold idea to address it?
I'll take a stab at it. A blind spot. Clearly, African people, black people in Western New York generate well over $800 million, and they spend about $8 million with black businesses. That penny on the dollar, that's a real blind spot. We don't realize that as he shared, we are a consuming community, and we're among the highest in per capita monies for charitable. We've learned how to ask for money. We've learned how to answer RFPs and RFQs. We've learned how to beg, no disrespect, but we learned how to position ourselves based on our problems and needs. And so we get funding. We've gotten our political priorities, our foundations, so many different resources. But when it comes to spending the money with us, we're at 1% now. And there's many reasons for that. We'll perhaps get into that later. But I would say that's the most critical thing, that we just don't spend our money with ourselves. We have 500 businesses. We have 250 churches. We have plus 250. We have over a dozen masjids. We have a variety of other faith-based groups. And we have 100 not-for-profits. We have 130 plus lawyers and 50 plus doctors. But this idea of loving ourselves, cooperative things, may I just say one other thing, that Build organization founded the Juneteenth as part of our Community Development Committee in 1976. Next year will be 50 years. It was based on love. And on the night before Juneteenth commenced, that first Saturday, right here on Jefferson, there was a group of people that spontaneously went out to celebrate and started partying. I was saying to Marnetta Malcolm the other day about this Friday events that are here, and there were hundreds of people on Friday getting down. It birthed, and they view it from she remembers the first night, the night before Juneteenth. We've got to get back into loving ourselves. When you had 75,000 people on the streets of Jefferson Avenue, there was love there. And this idea of loving the good, there's so much to love. And so that, I didn't mean to go too far in that, but it is a real thing. And I think when we come to love ourselves, the rest of this will fall in place.
So I'm curious. So you say there are like 500 black businesses?
Yes.
Wow.
500, and maybe more than that. Many are DBAs and new starts or small operations. But we do have one business with 130. But by the way, do we know who the top business is? Do we know what the top 5 businesses are? Do we know who has the most employees? I know there's an architectural firm with 125 architects and engineers, black owned. But again, we don't know ourselves, and we don't know our collective strengths. To have cooperative economics, we need to know who we can cooperate with. So we're going to get there.
Has there ever been like again, I moved here in the 90s, right? So people say I'm a Buffalonian by choice, right? But so I'll look to you to the history of the city, right? Has there what might be considered a heyday of black excellence in the city of Buffalo?
Well, a few. 1845, we hosted a national black political convention, and we were viewed then as a fledgling, emerging city that soon became the 6th most industrialized.
Right.
As a community. That was a big event for us. Yes, the organizing of the NAACP
right.
by way of Canada in a few years was a key thing. 1928, there was at Bethel Church, the second oldest black organization in Buffalo, the second oldest church, but second oldest black organization after Humboldt Parkway, which used to be called Michigan Avenue. They hosted 43 groups, not in a soiree, it was a social gathering, but they went to get all of the community together. So that was although not highly regarded now, that was a major event. Yes, Juneteenth was a major event, and several breakthrough elections, the near election of Arthur Eve in 1977, he nearly won. He won the primary. He lost in the general election. But the feeling, we believe in Eve, and the feeling of the community and the euphoria when he won the primary was a high point. So there are a number of things that we can point to. Those are just a brief treatment of our high points.
Dr. Haynes, what do you think is one of the biggest economic blind spots in Buffalo's Black community as you know it?
What's a blind spot in the city? Well, I think my discipline generates blind spots. You know, I mean, we talk about maximizing profits and the discipline in general is about scarcity. I would also agree with Charley that it's I think a strategic decision to work as a group in such a way that we can generate revenues for a group. So one of the things like Monroe Ford, you remember Monroe?
Very well.
All right, so Monroe wrote that article about the cooperative that grew in Buffalo in the 1920s and lasted until the 1960s, right? So, we have a long history of cooperatives and Figmos. I remember I wasn't here for Big Figures, but I heard about Figmos, and so there's a history. It might be in the politics. I was wondering, as Charley was talking about, what is the role of politics, right? I played a role as a politician. I probably would never do it again, right? Probably would never do it again, and not necessarily fear-based, but it's kind of like entering into a boxing ring with one hand tied behind your back, right? That's kind of what I believe. When I was in politics, I think definitely we did pull something off, but I think having a black mayor, having a black majority on the council, having a black president, even though we were black politically all the way down, it didn't necessarily translate into economics. And I think that again, what I feel my contribution is that we need the blind spot is because we're operating from the wrong paradigm. I think that from my perspective, the right paradigm is a paradigm that I learned through studying Lloyd Hogan's Black Political Economy. So we're studying for a paradigm that came out of Europe, that came out of scarcity, that led to colonialism, that led to chattel slavery, that led to neocolonialism, that led to monetary colonialism, to the point that white is right and black is not, right? As if that's a natural phenomenon, and it is not a natural phenomenon. And I think that probably the blind spot is we don't realize how beautiful and powerful we really are.
Wow. That was powerful stuff.
Yeah.
So to Mr. Charley Fisher, in my study of you, I've noticed that you've always emphasized self-determination in the Black community, and not so recently, because you have been talking about it for a while, you mentioned the importance of Black wealth and economics. What does true economic power look like to you?
I think that true economic power takes us from last place in America in Black business, which Ebony Magazine once published, to a very competitive place. I use a passage from the scriptures talking about David, the king, recovered all. Recovery is not picking up where you left off, maybe like 1977 or 1920 or recovery is landing where you would have been if you never had stopped. It's exponential development. And with this digital age, with this marvelous technology that young people have absorbed, it's a catalyst that we can leapfrog forward. All we have to do is come together. Yes, it is true that the politicians, we have elected 73 or so since Sherman Walker in 1937, but our politicians today aren't meeting collectively as a Black caucus. Our not-for-profits, once under the leadership of Arthur Eve, we had the Youth Planning Council of the Near East Side, and about 40 not-for-profits regularly met. They're not meeting now. The civil rights movement, the Black Leadership Forum, after the 22 caliber killing, which was, by the way, began in the parking lot of Tops on Genesee Street. Of course, that's tore down now. That leadership forum was a gathering of the civil rights leaders, and they're not meeting now. The clergy, through the Interdenominational Ministers Alliance that Dr. Boyce, L.T. Boyce, and Robert Bishop Sanders and others were, Bishop Leroy Anderson, they had a regular meeting. Then later it was called the Concerned Clergy, and there were other attempts. But now, as best I understand, the clergy, less more, the clergy and imams aren't meeting. And so I think once we decide that we're going to bring it to the table and bury the past and put aside this political proclivity of let's ask this politician for some money. And then if you do good, we both been council member, Not that we did it, that we tried to operate a little differently, and where did that get us?
Yeah.
But truly, it's not about if I give you this money, this is public money, your tax money. But if I give you this money, you're going to behave, you're going to support what I want, and all of that. Not to downgrade the efforts that political figures have to do and perform, but I think we've got to rely differently. We've got to get out of the paradigm of just vote, and elect, and somehow that's going to magically. We've got to come out of that notion. Lastly, I'll say about Herbert Bellamy. He was a councilman at large also, but he was the founder of 1490 and Bellamy Enterprises. And I asked him, I said, Mr. B, what was your greatest accomplishment? You know what he said? I helped 12 Black businesses get started, and 10 of them are very successful. Several of them became millionaires. And he had the Greater East Side Business Association. That's dissipated. We do have a Black Leadership Forum. We do have the Jefferson Business Association. I don't know what Fillmore and Bailey are doing now, but we do have to bring together that. So we got to come to the table, bury the past, look forward, learn and bring forth new approaches from our youth and young people, our young adults. And I think then and only then will we move forward.
Do you think that there's is there support for that? You believe like as I think about it again, when I think about the work that I did, like I said, the young folks came, they were very enthusiastic, but we weren't able to sustain them. Right? We weren't able to continue to give them money, right? And labor is labor, right? And if you're working on the things that we're talking about, you're not working on that, right? But I think that and maybe you probably feel the same thing, is that this kind of language, the people love this language, right? And they're attracted to it, but it could only last so long if there's not financial support that could actually feed people. Now, you mentioned that Bellamy played a key role in from his own understanding of creating millionaires. How do we do that now? That's my question to you. Is that I have a bunch of entrepreneurs with me, right? And I think we're looking to do the same thing. But how do you think we can do that now? Because if we could feed our army, right? And we talking about not a military army, a war army, but an army of love. If we could feed people, right, they're going to stay, you know?
I think that clearly, while we have esteemed and great academicians that are available to us, this business of creating wealth, and Henry Taylor hit me with that when I first met him. He came here and did the study of Black Buffalo. He said, Charley, you got a lot of these groups, but we got to get into wealth creation. So where is wealth creation? So when you go to Atlanta and you talk to the family of Jesse Hill, Cornell, McBride, and some of those powerful business people, men and women who've been in the forefront, their view, I think we need to ask them, come up here and show us what to do. Tom, one of our former assistant treasurer of Buffalo Savings Bank, became the president of Carver's Federal Savings and Loan. You want a black bank here? We don't have a black bank, do we? Ask him. Bring him here. We bring all these people for banquets and keynote addresses. Bring in the people who are actually doing it in South Carolina, in Atlanta, in Chicago. There are hundreds of black millionaires, but there are groups that have been about the business of developing that. And so we have to be willing not to bring them in and tell them what we want to tell them, but to listen. Yeah. And if you love, you also listen. You have respect. But I think we have to bring in those, because if we don't have them here, there are more than a dozen black millionaires, but I'm talking about people who are really in the business of equity, development, wealth, business capitalization, those kind of things. Let's bring them in. Those two brothers who own hotels in St. Louis. You want a black hotel here? Dr. Haynes is smart. You're very smart. I'm smart. But we don't know how to build, probably how to open a hotel and make it profitable and last.
Right.
So let's talk to those people who've done that. Let's bring them in, but it's got to be intentional and deliberate. Black bank, black grocery store, black-owned hotel, black 5-star or 3-star white table restaurant. Those things are and it's great that the Urban League is going to open up their headquarters as a not-for-profit on Jefferson. It's great that we're going to build a museum to honor the tragedy of May 14th. But we've got 40% of Buffalo is not-for-profits. That's not on the tax. We need to really talk about that, and I'm interested in hearing, too, about this whole wealth group that's going to come. But we need to have some taxable, tax-paying businesses that hire, that we need to know who are the top 10 black businesses today. Who are the top? That's the thing. Not that we don't care about our charitable groups and all those things. We have some great banquets and annual meetings, but we got to spend that into something else.
So it sounds like a directory.
Oh, yes.
Sound like a directory.
Yeah.
I've heard about directories, and I've heard different groups trying to organize them. I remember like the first directory that Shamari James, he was trying to organize one way back in the late 90s. And then who's the young lady who was doing the
Brown Bag?
Yeah, Brown Bag, yeah.
Is it Chantel?
Yeah.
Shout out to you.
Yeah, Chantel, shout out, we appreciate that. But, and Carlanda too, yeah.
Khalil mentioned Carlanda, and we had a meeting with her. She seems excited to collaborate with Mr. Fisher, and that seems to be in the works now. So.
And I do want to. I know you said you just want to hear us talk, right? But we're elders, man, and we do want to. I've heard, like when it comes to like creating, like for example, the Northland Project, right? It's like they say that the opportunities are there, but our youth are not. They're not attracted to that. I mean, what would you say to that? Is that, like, a lot of people in my generation might say that young folks don't want to work, right? They don't want to work because there are, there are jobs out there. Now I have a take on that, but I was just curious what yours might be.
From my perspective, I feel like I'm bridging the gap between the youth and the elders, and the youth just seem very entrepreneurial. Okay. Something that is constructive, entertaining, and educational, that they have autonomy and freedom of choice to direct their mental power towards, seems to be what they're gravitating towards. And if there's an institutional structure that diminishes that or tries to limit the potential of the creativity that they're trying to express, it seems like they're rebelling against it.
Well, it's like, I see that, right? I think we should, like, part of the paradigm shift is because, again, the old school was, you as a matter of fact, in the good part of the last century, you didn't even have to graduate from school, right? You could get a job at Bethlehem Steel, right? But I think there's a heck of a movement right now for individual and personal sovereignty, right? And the idea of working for somebody else, especially if it's back-breaking work, right? It's like hard physical work. That's not exciting to people, right? I'm getting a paycheck, right? Well, in my classes I teach, right? If you work for money or if you saving money, you're losing, right? And I think that the young folks understand that, right? You work for $10 or you work for $20. Well, the purchasing power of that $20 is diminishing. It's like, you save, right? There's no strong incentive to save, and then doing all this for somebody else, backbreaking work for somebody else. But at the end of the day, you still can't go out. You still can't do this. You still can't do that. But I work 40, 50 hours this week, and I'm wore out, and I still can't get ahead. That I think that's part of the thinking. Is that, would you say, or?
Seems that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's indicative of just a macrocosm of the way that the economics have played out. Like, the dollar is diminishing, the buying power is diminishing, which means that people have to work harder to keep up, and as a result, their human energy.
Forget that. Forget that.
One brother told me, Brother Khalil remembers this maybe. He said a paycheck is a pay to check you.
Yeah.
A paycheck is a pay to check you.
Brother Khalil, you said that?
He was there when we were talking about. So the thing is that there is that mindset, and we have to, who want to see these changes, want to see this embrace as we present it to our younger brothers and sisters. We've got to be prepared to listen to them as well and to share with them. Do you think we could pull together the elders to create a financial base to work with these young folks and like if they're working in this new realm of abundance, that we could help feed them? I think that there are some who understand that that's needed to be done, should have been done a long time ago, but we do have some resources, and we need to put that on the table. We need to share that. That's the only way that it happens. Yeah. But again, self-determination, do for self. We can't look for the Oshai Foundation. I appreciate what they do with many of our organizations, or the Moot Foundation, or these other groups to solve our problems, or give us money to this has got to come from within. And so putting money on the table, I mean, Dr. Haynes makes a big check.
I wish.
Those professors make big money, but seriously, we should look at that. And again, those lawyers, the Minority Bar Association, and I know they have a Christmas party, but talk to them, go see them, and then talk to them about their emerging lawyers that just came past the bar. And you'll see there's still that divide. young pastors and sitting down with the elder pastors, it doesn't actually easily happen. And there needs to be resources in all those areas, but it's got to be a sharing. I know my Cash App is frequently visited by
by some young folks, huh?
Yeah, those 10 And then listen, I'll tell you one more quick story. At the lodge recently, I told last September, a young man, Alexander Wright's son, James Wright, he's 8 years old. He's 8 years old. I told him, I said, listen, I pay for A's. So if you get A's on your final report card, I'll come see me. And so he brought a copy of his report card Monday night. They handed it to me. And there were 12 grades. All were A's. 10 times 12 is 120. So I only got 20 on me. Here's 20 down payment. But you know, he was listening to me, and he remembered what I said months ago. And he's only 8 years old, and he has a 98 average. He's at the Our Lady of Victory School or something. But he's that young man is a future. He said he wanted to be a scientist.
Yeah, nice.
I said, well, you got to go to 12th grade, 16th grade, 20th grade, and at least 22nd grade.
I went to 22nd grade myself.
Yes,
I know the story. I know the story.
And in the field of economics, that's the most difficult, perhaps challenging area to get a PhD. It maybe would be in economics and marketing, and some people actually lived in the library.
Oh, you heard about that?
Yeah, I know about that. Yeah, I know about that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the issue of economics, yes, I studied economics, but I would say that the bulk of my study of economics was very difficult. And in part, it was very difficult because I didn't see myself. I didn't see my community, right? So I'm studying this discipline, you know, and the economist is the modern day priest, right? And so the modern day priest is saying this and that, but when I'm studying it, I didn't see the history of imperialism or the history of colonialism or the history of slavery or the history of separate unequal wages or the fact that how difficult it was to generate capital and capitalists in the black community. The economic professors did not talk about it, whether it's mainstream economics or liberal or left economics. It just wasn't there. So I was going to school with a chip on my shoulder, right? And the problem is, and I'm guessing a lot of young people are like the same way. Like when you operate with a chip on your shoulder, it's hard to concentrate, right? You know, it's hard to concentrate, right? And it wasn't until I went to UMass, and I think I said in another podcast, UMass was considered the Harvard for Marxists. And so I was studying mainstream economics, Keynesian economics, but at one point I took a history of economics thought class, and Karl Marx, right? He wrote theories of surplus value, and it was a literature review of the mainstream economists in his period, right? And then I was like, wow, okay, I got to know this stuff to destroy it. And you know, there's no need for me to even study or engage in neoclassical Keynesian or Marxian economics anymore, because they're not the solution. They're the history. They're the past. You know, I stand firmly in Lloyd Hogan's Black Political Economy as a bridge from economics of scarcity to economics of abundance. And also I would say that there's not, you know, I mean, not to toot my own horn, right, but the depth of understanding that I have of that bridge is par excellence, right? There's, you know, nobody has that understanding that I have, you know, and I feel that it's time for me to share it, right? You know, like for a metaphor, right? I don't know, you might have been in my old office, but I spent probably almost like 30 years in an office. I never changed, and it was an office without windows. right? Yeah, you remember those days? Yeah,
I do.
I didn't have, and I had a chance. I had a chance to get another office, right? But I felt, like now that I do have an office with windows, and I just had it a couple of years ago, it's like, nah, I was like this mad scientist in this, and in
the dark room.
in the dark room, right? And now I'm out, and I concocted for 30 years, and I'm ready to share, and so I know what I bring to the table. I bring like a well-disciplined study, but that's just my niche. That's just what I bring to the table. The overarching framework, because a lot of businessmen, businesswomen, right? Their hearts are in the right place, but mainstream economics says, you may have heard of this, right? I've heard it many times, right? When you introduce a social concern into economics, into business, people are like, that's not business, that's social work. And it's like, no, it's like, no, you've been brainwashed by a particular framework, but good economics, going to the parables, right? If you serve, you receive 10 times, and so this neoclassical is like individual self-interest, and that's how you make money. That's a hoodwink, right? It's not, right? No, service, right? In re-understanding service and being able to monetize that service, like what we're doing, pioneering a loving community lucratively, right? That's our goal. That's my mission. Khalil, TJ, the Academy, that's what we expect to do. We want to pioneer a loving community. And the vast majority of the time that human beings have been on the planet, right? Like we were communal. Right, this experiment in feudalism, in slavery, in capitalism, right, in materialism, those are relatively new experiments, but we see them as if they've been here forever. And in material, like you don't see happy materialists, right? If you organize your thinking and your world around materialism, chances are you're not looking at a happy human being.
Go off, Dr. Haynes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so I pose this question to the both of you. How do we hold institutions and each other accountable to real economic progress?
Well, I would say, I mean, it's how do you build a bridge? How do you build a skyscraper? You need plans. You need a blueprint. You need the right people, right? So I would say that we're building, we're building society, right? And where's the key aspect of building society? It's in our education, and it's in our media, it's in our religious organizations, right? But I would say that our education is 20th century education. In part, the rebellion of our youth is they're being taught 20th century knowledge as if it works in the 21st century. It doesn't, right? I think that if our youth are taught in a 21st century way, 21st century knowledge, they'll fall in love with it. But us elders, we grew up in the 20th century. We love our youth, right? But all we know is 20th century knowledge. Right? And we're giving them 21st century knowledge, and it doesn't work we're giving them 20th century knowledge that does not work in the 21st century.
The other side of that, I do agree with you on that. But another perspective is about accountability, is this lack of transparency. I'm in office. Do I give an annual report to someone, to anyone? I know this mayor gives a state of the city, state of the county, state of the state, the president's address, but as an elected official, he represented 30-some thousand people. And I was representative of the city at that time, about 230,000 people. I didn't have the district responsibilities he did, but we both tried to be as transparent as we could. So let's just move that forward. Yeah. All leadership needs to deposit with the kind of technology that we have now, the sophistication, we need to know the annual reports. Let me say this about not-for-profits. They're not, those not-for-profits that are doing wonderful things in many instances, they're not aware that they have a responsibility to the public. That's taxpayer money and money that's been donated to you or given to you. You got to report that. We got to get out of this siloism that says I'm over here, I got mine, and I see that even in churches. Churches have to be accountable. You want community participation in the mosque. They want community neighborhood support. Then you've got to be willing to open up. People want to talk to you about your facilities. We have a vast amount of resources in the way of property, not just church buildings, but many other type of. So we do need that. All of our organizations need to deposit an annual report. So when we start talking about the state of African buffalo, it needs to be the compilation of all those documents, all that information, all that data, and then that data, of course, is there. One last aspect, we're doing now a survey that is precursor to this needs assessment and asset map. But we see that we've got to start talking to each other again. I really need to know what you feel. I need to listen to you. And again, from the meta nature, the citizen hears the voice. I'm a citizen. I need to hear you. I don't need to just talk. I need to hear what you have to say. I need to listen to you. You want to go somewhere fast, go by yourself. You want to go far, go with who? Others. Yeah. And so that whole notion of accountability is really, really, really important. And then it comes down to the individual and what am I going to do? What's my task in this process? And so it's a lot of areas that we have to work on. But I really think that when you bring the community together to bring in a spirit of Ashe, a consensus, it's not a simple majority, all those in favor, all those opposed, too bad. It is, let's work till we reach a consensus. That's hard. That's a challenge, but it's important.
Definitely. I think that to think that voting once every 4 years or once every 2 years is your fiduciary responsibility is not enough at all. But let me ask you. So it's like, okay, boots on the ground. What's next? How can I serve?
Yes. Well, of course, one easy answer is I need you to come to the meeting. And again, this podcast may come out.
Go ahead and plug it.
But we may do some of this live as well. But clearly, we're having a meeting at the Meriwether Library on August 23rd at 10 o'clock. It's just 90 minutes. Come and hear these great minds bring you up to date. There is some accountability of some of our people like the president of TOPS. But we took a deep breath at our last month's meeting, and we said, okay, we got that out the way. Now let's breathe, and then let's move forward. But we are going to have different people. We're going to hear some of the tenants are going to be there. We're going to, residents on Jefferson Avenue, there's several hundred people who live on Jefferson Avenue, 97 at those two new apartment complexes, and then 1490, and then residential homes all the way up to Canisius College. So we're going to do that. You can also, it'll be, I'm sure, on the screen. You can go to our website. I
got a nice team, huh?
I got a team, but find me at several different places.
We're hooking you up.
So if we'll share that so that we are available. Anyone that wants to call certainly wants to go there to the site, log in, and let's hear you and let's respond.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So what role do youth creatives and entrepreneurs play in building this new paradigm for Black Buffalo?
Well, I'm talking to one, right? I mean, I think that I could throw it back to you, right? What role do you think they could play? I think that my experience being around the youth and the creative, well, I mean, it's in the word, creative, right? I mean, the status quo, we're, it's bottom line, we're blessed, right? Before I want to preface this, right? It's like I realize how blessed I am, right? But the status quo is a 21st century paradigm, right? And the creatives, it's like, what are we? Are we creatures or creators, right? And if we're just like operating like ants and not doing anything, we're creatures, right? But I think the human being has a choice, right? And it really is time. I can't like, it can't be underestimated the significance of the shift, the paradigm shift, or the significance of the monumental change in epoch and time period. I don't know, probably I could ask anyone in this room, but does it seem like time is moving faster now?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like time is moving faster. And a lot of that, for many people who are stuck in the 20th century paradigm, that's very scary, right? There's a lot of fear. Like real economics, real abundance economics could be measured on smiles on faces. And there's not enough smiles, right? And what I would say also, I grew up and I was trained 20th century. I was trained as a progressive, quote, radical economist. And I was taught to focus on income differentials, right? It's, like the black male, black female makes, 60 cents off the dollar of a European American, right? But, and so I spent a lot of my intellectual energy, like, focusing on that. But, most of the 21st century, I realized it's not about income differentials, it's about asset differentials. It's the wealth differentials. And we got to respond to that wealth differential. And we got to recognize that we're so like I said, I focus on income. The Marxists, they would focus on the work sites, right? We would focus, and then the political economists in me would focus on the unfairness in terms of the black population. Like pretty much, as I said in other podcasts, is that the poverty in the black community is in direct correlation to the wealth being created for others over the last 400 or 500 years. But what's new to me, and this, it's like as an economist, is the money. I really never studied deeply. Like I studied money, but mostly I studied the production process. Mostly I studied the appearance of separation, like the history of the black American being free on the black American through slavery, right? But being free on the African continent, being taken from there, right, through the Middle Passage, then freeing themselves from slavery, freeing themselves from sharecropping, freeing themselves from separate, unequal, but my intellectual energy was on that, right? But I didn't spend a lot of intellectual energy on money until now. And like I really did not understand how significant especially in 1971, when the United States, under Nixon, we went off of the gold standard. And we became 100% fiat, or money by decree, meaning that the government decrees that this money has value, right? And why does it have money? Why does it have value? It has value because of the military might of the United States. We're the world reserve currency. But it wasn't clear to me until now that I've been working for money for most of my life, where also for most of my life, the government has been creating it, right? So I'm working for it, and they're creating it, right? And as a consequence, like I told stories to these young folks that my father bought a house, in the late 60s for $9,000. And they're like, $9,000? Well, $9,000 was fair price for a two-family house in the 1960s. But that same house now is like the average price for a house like that is $400,000. The same house, right? Exactly, the same house. Well, why? It's the same house, right? The house didn't change. It maybe a few upgrades, but it was the debasement of the money. And so it's imperative. Like, as I said in our community meeting last night, at the risk of sounding ridiculous, Bitcoin is half the solution, right? And I would love to share my knowledge about Bitcoin and why it's half the solution. The other half of the solution is the way we think, right? That's the other half, right? If we shift the way we think from a scarcity consciousness to an abundance or a prosperity consciousness, people really underestimate the significance of that, of shifting the thought process. They think, oh, that's, thoughts are, thoughts are just thoughts, right? No, what is it? Even Tesla, right? Tesla, right? He would say that he visualized his invention all the way to the most intricate level in his mind first before he started bringing it out into the real world, right? And so I would say again, Bitcoin is solves half the problem. The way we think, right? If we shift from having our scattered thinking to very concentrated thinking, and what kind of concentrated thinking, right? Well, concentrated thinking around dreams, goals, desires, aspirations, right? We don't have to give up our dreams. We don't have to give up our goals. We don't have to give up our desires. We don't have to give up our aspirations just to make money, right? No, with real money, Bitcoin's real money. And I'm excited to give a seminar on that. And then the other part is, again, the youth don't want to work for somebody who owns a business and you're working $15 an hour, and they walk away with the bulk of the revenues, right? No, that revenue should be shared among the workers, and that's the beauty of the cooperative business firm, right? So I would say the cooperative business firm is part of the solution. Thinking from the mindset of, no, I don't work for dollars anymore, right? I'm working for something else. And my team, right, at least everybody on my team knows I don't work for dollars anymore. I get dollars, but I'm turning it into Bitcoin, right? And I could explain what I mean by that into the future. And then lastly, America has done well in material wealth, but they've done very poorly in life wealth, spiritual wealth, emotional wealth, mental wealth, community wealth. Terrible, abysmal, right? I mean, but wealth is wealth. Wealth is a product of labor, right? And so I think that if we do that mind jujitsu, right, is switch from a scarcity consciousness to a prosperity consciousness, and share that with the other human beings in our lives, I'm excited what we could create with the creatives.
Just hearing you inspires me, and it affects my thinking. I was just thinking about following through what you're talking about from the Middle Passage and through all the different oppressive periods of time. We come to a point today where there are 50 million African people in this United States. Yeah. We're 1.5 billion of us in the world, but 50 million, and a $2 trillion black economy, which is about half of the economy of the rest of our people on the earth. Yeah. Black people on earth. Half the money's here. So somehow in this process, because again, it's new orders coming, new directions coming, new systems coming, great equalizers perhaps. But what we do have today is a couple $1 trillion. 50 million of us survived today there are 50 million of us in this country.
Yeah.
There were 1 million in the South and during plantation, on the plantations.
Yeah.
Today, there are 50 million of us, and not to mention the rest of the world, but we just happen to have half the money. Now, when we decide to invest that with wisdom, with prudence, but I'm challenged. I'm going to do the Bitcoin.
I got you, man.
I'm going with it now.
Yeah.
And I'll say this in closing. Not necessarily in closing, but I am 71 now. I was always the young man in the group. I was always with the elders, and now I'm one. I made more money last year than I ever had in my life, even with illness and physical issues and things like that. I made pretty good, and I said, boy, I wish I had have started this. I wish I had listened to you 20, 30 years ago. I'd be a very wealthy man. But I am the son of Mary Fisher, who was the first black woman real estate broker in New York State. I'm the son of Charley Fisher, Herman Fisher Jr., who started a cab stand, bought a cab stand on William in Michigan back in the day. So that's what, and of course he worked at Westinghouse 30 years, never late for work in 30 years. So that work ethic and that spirit of industry, it came to me very late in life, but it was there, it was planted. So I'd like to just say to our viewers and listeners that, that we have a great opportunity today, in spite of everything that's happened and all the tragedy and all the negative situations. We're here.
Yeah.
We're alive, and we got great potential. And these things like Bitcoin, with the proper leadership, a wise man or woman will hear and receive instruction. A fool will not listen. And so I think if we do that, I'm going to accept that. We're going to move that through the community, talking about Bitcoin with measured, controlled process.
Definitely.
So I've just, it's big, and I appreciate, as I told you at the beginning before we started, I checked Trevor Ruffin at Delaware Park. Trevor was he was a great pro too, but I checked him. I had to play defense against him, and it was also I played against Cliff Robinson, who was 6'10", and he looked real thin, I was about his weight actually, but he was like made of steel. and I tried to set a pick on him. So I guess I'm saying to say that it's been a pleasure to sit with you as an icon, as a great thinker, and I think it's wonderful now that you're unleashed, you're out of that
dungeon. Out that dungeon.
Unleashed. Now let's go and let's get with you. And, we're going to listen. But with that, I think, in the energy, and I really appreciate all those people who have come, just started getting with us and following us with the build or some of the other responses. We're really excited about what's happening. He said it calls the old because they know the way. He calls the young because they're strong. And so another one of my biblical references. But and so we're just thankful, and I appreciate the opportunity to share. I wanted to take notes. I brought my paper, but thank you again.
Yeah, I'm excited as well. I think that we're going to go ahead and end this on a high note. That was high level, very powerful. Thank you both. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and end this, and I don't know if you had any final words you'd like to give to the audience, but on my end, I'm speechless about what I've heard. I'm honored to be among you two, and I'm ready to continue listening to see how we're going to push this agenda forward. Any last words for you?
Well, I think I walk in gratitude, and the more years, like I heard this the other day, is that, and I think I told you also, right? You know, like I may not have many years left on this planet, but I have a lot of seconds, and I expect to, you know, I'm looking forward to using my seconds very strategically, very precisely, with a lot of intent. You know, black elders, you know, it's you know, the thing is that like where the bulk of the knowledge is in that population 60, 70, right? And a lot of us, you know, we're declining in health right at the time that we have all this to give back, you know. And I think in part is because we haven't been taught about life wealth. We, you know, you look in our, you know, like very simple, like we go to the supermarket, you know, out of 12 aisles, 9 of those aisles are commodities that are not healthy for you, right? It's junk food, processed food, right? And a lifetime of, and people say, well, you know, like how are Americans so obese, but they say they're poor? Well, the obesity is a function of poverty in America because we're eating junk food, right? We're eating food that has no nutritional value. And so, you know, Charley and I, we're very fortunate to be at our ages and being able to give back, right? And we want to set a precedence that you as a young man, you should be able to do that. I mean, you know, you should probably be able to give back in your 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? Because just think of all the wealth and knowledge and experiences to give. You're 70 years old to give to somebody 20 years old, you know. So it's imperative that we shift from economics of scarcity to economics of prosperity, economics of abundance. And the critical part of that shift is the way we think. We need to think in loving ways, in open ways. And I must say that as a student of the black experience in the United States, but when I look across the world, there's a lot of tragedy, right? I mean, everybody's got a story about travesty in their history, you know, and we don't want to compete on travesty, right? It's like, okay, yeah, we get it, you know, like, you know, we all came to this point from different paths, right? We all have some kind of history in that context, but we're in the same boat now, right? And as we say, how big is your we, right? How big is this next community? Lloyd Hogan was like, listen, we as Black Americans, we can be the exemplars to the oppressed people of the planet on how to build an environment where we can create, you know, opportunities for human perfectibility. We could be the exemplars, you know. So that's kind of how I feel. And also, you know, we're doing some really amazing things. So you could check at least my work, Dr. C. Haynes Jr. at just about all social media. You could check our work at CIGbuffalo.com. And if you want to email us, CIGbuffalo@gmail.com. We got some amazing things coming. Stay tuned.
I'll just conclude what he said. Build unity, independence, liberty, and dignity.
Nice.
Nice.
Thank you so much. Peace.
Peace.